Hello booktube, hello book friends, welcome back to my channel and another reading week update video. This is for the week ending August the 9th 2025, and I think it's probably fair to say it's been a bit of a slower reading week after the kind of month-long Private Eye July, where I seem to read an awful lot of books. And I've kind of been weaning myself off private eye fiction by reading sort of general crime fiction. One book that I started last week, I've finished, and I've also finished another book. And then I've got some books in progress, as it were. So let's talk about the ones that I've finished first. So the first one that I finished was an audiobook, which was The Stranger Diaries by Elly Griffiths. Elly Griffiths has been writing for quite some time, and is a relatively, I suppose she's a relatively new author to me. I've read some of her, what's the character? Ruth Galloway. And in fact, I've finished another one in that series this week, but I've been reading those out of sequence. So this was the first in the I think it was probably originally, because she talks about it as a standalone series, which, well, it's not. It's either a series or it's a standalone, isn't it? Because she's written several different series, and this is the first book in the Harbinder Kaur series. So Harbinder Kaur is a police detective sergeant, and in this first book, she is investigating a murder of a school teacher, and it's linked to a old-fashioned ghost story that another teacher is writing about, or at least writing about the author of that ghost story. And the school concerned is situated in that ghost story author's old house, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit, it makes perfect sense in the book, but I've probably just made it sound a bit confusing. And anyway, there is one murder, and then later on there is another, and so on. I have to say, I worked out who the murderer was about halfway through the book. I had a fairly good idea. I knew who it was. I think that was more kind of through the lack of plausible suspects. So I mean, I quite like working out who done it. It's just kind of a thing, I like getting there before I'm told, if that makes sense. I did find sections of the book quite annoying, and I think this is probably how I worked it out. There are sections of the book where, because it's all written in the first person, but it's written in the first person of the different characters. So there's the kind of the detective, there's the main school teacher who is kind of featured throughout, and then there's her daughter, and a couple of others. I can't remember who, and the because there are flashbacks to the ghost story, so the author of the ghost story is also there as a character. And I think what I found a little bit frustrating was you'd get the story in the first person from one character, and then you'd get kind of the same thing repeated by one of the other characters because they overlapped at some point. So that became a little bit frustrating after a while, because it's like, well, I know all of this because you've already told me, So I think I think it was just a bit clunky. It was quite well done in the audiobook because it was done with different actors for the different characters, so it's wasn't quite so bad. But I think, excuse me, I think that was a bit of a distraction and a bit of a letdown for the book in telling the story. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it. It was okay. It wasn't, and it was nice to have sort of a bit of crime fiction that isn't private eye fiction. And then the other book was, as I say, was another Elly Griffiths, and this was a Kindle book. And this was the first, so I actually went and read the first in the series because I've been I don't know, it's about 15, 16, something like that, high teens anyway, books in the series, and I've not ever started at the beginning. So I thought I would go back and start at the beginning. So I read the first in that series. I don't think I've read about the first, I don't know, 10, I think I've not read, so I've got quite a few to catch up on. So I went and read that. I also worked out who the main criminal was because there's a couple of different criminals, but this features a kidnapping or missing person, missing young girl kidnapping case that is 10 years old, and also a more recent kidnapping of a young girl, and it's clear that the two are linked. And again, as I say, worked out who it was. Wasn't 100% sure, but yeah. So again, it was fine. Just nice, easy read, and as I say, getting me back from reading so much PI fiction, which is good. So then, what am I currently reading? I'm reading or listening to the second in the Harbinder Core because it was available from the library. So this is the Postscript Murders, and this features a I'm not quite sure how to describe it. There's been a death which, to all intents and purposes, looks like it's natural causes, but some friends of the deceased aren't convinced. Then there has been a fairly horrific murder, somebody shot, and those two individuals are linked. And there's also been a third death, which is it's suspicious. I haven't formulated an idea as to who might be the guilty party in that one yet, so we'll wait and see. But yes, I'm currently listening to that as an audiobook. I'm also currently reading Umberto Eco's The Prague Cemetery. This is a buddy read with Debs at Rainer Read Stuff and Gavin at Genre Books, and we have given ourselves 2 weeks to read this. So this is the first week. I read quite a lot of it at the start of the week, so I'm about halfway through. But I haven't read any at all in the last few days because I was reading the Elly Griffiths book. So I need to get back to this. I won't say too much about it because we haven't talked about it as part of the buddy read yet. So yeah, reading that. And then I also, did I mention this last week? I think I might have done. I've started Les Misérables, and I am, where am I? About 250 pages in of 1100 and odd, 1100 and 1194 pages. My original plan for this was to read it over 2 months, so August and September. I think just based on how long it's taken me to read 250 pages, I think it might take me a bit longer than 2 months to read. So I'm going to kind of stretch it and say it's going to be kind of August, September, October. I might pick up speed. I know when I read The Count of Monte Cristo, I was quite slow to start with, and then I picked up speed. I think the problem is this is quite a, it's compared to something like what's this, about 500 pages. It's a bigger book, so there are more words per page, etc. And I think it's just taking a little bit longer to read than it would otherwise. But I am enjoying it. I've got lots of tabs, as you can see, of things I want to go back and reread. So yeah, I just think it's going to take me longer than I originally. I think I was being optimistic that I could read it in 2 months. I still might, I guess. As I say, I might pick up speed. But I'm tending not to. This isn't kind of bedtime reading for me. I'm reading something else when I get into bed, just because it's physically a heavy book, and I also feel like I need to concentrate a bit more when I'm reading it. So I'm just reading it as and when. I'm trying to stick to my schedule, but I think I'm about a day behind already from where I thought, the nerd in me had planned it all out. And as I say, I think I'm about a day behind now already. So, if I'm losing a day a week at least, then it's going to take me into October anyway. So that, I think, is it, because it's been, as I say, been a quieter week this week. So if you have been, thank you for watching. Let me know what you're reading down below in the comments, and I will speak to you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.